Iceland. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight and taking time out from your busy schedules. We're going to start the TIFA meeting October 19th. Let's start by taking roll. Director Seisland, if you could take roll, that'd be awesome.
Thank you. Board Member Kuzno?
Present.
Board Member DePews? Board Member Farrell?
Present.
Board Member Kikoshi?
Present.
Board Member Lee? Board Member Mullen? Board Member Piepenbrock?
Present.
Board Member Ralstrom? Board Member Secord?
Present.
And Board Member Tompkins?
Present.
Chairman Hughes, the board's been admitted.
Okay, Nick, I'm on now.
Jeff is in.
I'm in. Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. We have you.
Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
Do we have a motion for the approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Is there a support?
I support.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll take the roll. Board Member Kuzno?
Yes.
Board Member DePews? Board Member Farrell?
Yes.
Board Member Hughes?
Yes.
Board Member Kikoshi?
Yes.
Board Member Lee?
Yes.
Board Member Mullen? Board Member Piepenbrock?
Yes.
Board Member Ralstrom?
Yes.
Board Member Secord?
Yes.
And Board Member Tompkins?
Yes.
All righty.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Hughes. So just give me 1 second. See if we have any public comment or hands raised. I have no written public comment. And I currently have no hands raised for public comment.
Unmute yourself, John.
Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. We're going to move to the Grosse Pointe Park Business Association introduction. Nick is going to have a word or two to say about that, but we do have Joe Habecchia, who is chairman of the Business Association, to give us a brief overview of some of their activities. And we're very fortunate to have the business organized to help to promote the community and activities within the district. We appreciate that. And also, Joe, thank you to the Business Association, all the others who helped to put the trolleys back on the street to bring folks to the business district. So Nick, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Chairman Hughes. So board members, before you tonight is a consideration for the Grosse Pointe Park Business Association. First, I'll go ahead and let Joe Habecchia speak for a little bit on what his activities are and what he's been doing. And then we'll have further discussion amongst the board. Joe, I see you on screen. Welcome. And once you're unmuted, if you could kind of give us just a brief introduction about the Business Association and all about it. So thanks for being here.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for having me. Good evening to everybody. My name is Joe Habecchia. I own Belding Cleaners in Grosse Pointe Park. Obviously, it's on Kercheval. I'm the founder and president of the Grosse Pointe Park Business Association. That's something that I founded because I really had the intention of unifying all the businesses and pretty much just taking our day-to-day needs and listening to one another and really just putting our heads together to see, what we need on a daily basis to help improve, the operations of our businesses. Over the last 6 months, we've made some really good improvements to the banners all down Kercheval. We had added new banners. We've started our website. We have over 40 members, which is nearly, probably 70, maybe 65 or 70% of all the businesses in the park. We have, we've grown already in only the first 5 months. We've also started our social media. We've got, ads in Grosse Pointe News. We're hosting various events, things like that, things of that nature. So what I'm here for is really just to, request some assistance from TIFA, to help out TIFA businesses. And I guess basically we'll use that for marketing, advertising for the TIFA businesses. And just looking for some assistance with that. I think that the business association is an important part of the community. And I think that by doing this and having this association, I've kind of put myself as a liaison between all the business owners individually and the city itself. Something that, we feel is an important thing to have. And it seems to be doing well so far. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any board members have any questions or comments for Joe?
Joe, hi. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Hi, it's Kurt Ralstrom. I was just wondering, I know you're new and in your infancy, but do you see the goal of getting close to 100% of the business owners there? You said you've got about 2/3 right now. Is there any hesitancy to join this organization? I'll wait your comments. Okay.
No, it's been really good. And it's always, it's always kind of an uphill battle when you start it. And it really hasn't been hard whatsoever. We've talked to almost all the business owners along Kercheval and Charlevoix. A few of the ones on Jefferson, the office suites and things like that, those are a little difficult to get into. A lot of people are still working from home. We've got some, lawyers and, accountants and things like that just have a little suite, and they're not really that easy to get a hold of. But as far as brick and mortar, the actual brick and mortar businesses, we're doing great. We really are. We're doing great with it. And I think we will have close to, yeah, thanks.
Joe, this is Marcia. I just wanted to ask, you said you wanted help from the TIFA board. What kind of help are you looking? What kind of assistance are you looking?
We're looking for some financial assistance to help with the,
Okay.
Joe, I think you're muted right now.
Okay, there. Am I good? My back? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did I leave off at?
You were looking for some kind of assistance, and I asked you what kind.
Correct. Yep. We're looking for some financial assistance to help. Yeah, to help with expenses with our marketing and advertising for TIFA businesses.
Okay.
Hi, Joe. This is board member Pfeifenbrock, and I had a quick question for you as well. So the association covers. Hi. The association covers all of the park, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And when I formed the association, we have board members from every street. So it's also like a representative as well. I've got 3 board members from Kercheval, because that is the highest density of businesses. Then I've got a board member from Charlevoix, one on Mac and one on Jefferson. The Mac businesses are not, I don't think they are able to participate in the Mac Avenue Business Association, because I think it just stops at Cadieux. I believe it's called Avenue in the Woods. So we're trying to include everyone. Yep. It's
Okay,
all
so
of the
my
park, to answer your question.
The second part of the question then is, so you're asking for funding in the TIFA district. Are you also asking DDA for funding for the businesses on Jefferson, or how does that work?
I intend on that. Yeah, that would be my plan. Yep.
Because I just was thinking, if the marketing is for everybody in the park, then, maybe the funding should be split between, the two districts. That was just a thought.
Yeah. And yeah. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And we could do that also. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited about what you're doing. I think it's long overdue. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I know Board Member Piepenbrock, Joe has brought this to my attention as well. And obviously this is for tonight's TIFA consideration, but in my other role as DDA director, I do imagine, we'll probably be having Joe introduce himself there as well, asking for approval for advertisement and marketing over in the DDA district. So that's something we will probably see Joe at the DDA meeting. And so with that said, what I'd like to propose or recommend for the board members tonight is approve $8,000 under the marketing and promotions line item funding for the association, contingent upon the director and TIFA attorney Howlett signing a funding agreement between the TIFA and the Business Association for release of funds, so that those funds from the TIFA are used directly just in the TIFA district. So with that said, can I get a motion and a support?
Before you do that, give me that dollar amount again, please. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that, Marcia. $8,000.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to support it.
I second it.
Okay, so we'll do Board Member Kuzno made the motion and Board Member Ralstrom with the support. Any discussion? Okay, I'll do the roll call. Board Member Kuzno?
Yes, in favor.
Board Member DePews? Board Member Farrow?
Yes.
Board Member Hughes?
Yes.
Board Member Kikoshi?
Yes.
Board Member Lee? Board Member Lee? We'll try him again. Board Member Mullen? Board Member King Piepenbrock?
Yes.
Board Member Ralstrom?
Yes.
Board Member Secord?
Yes.
Board Member Tompkins?
Yes.
And Board Member Lee again. I know he's on.
He might be drifting in and out. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And Joe, keep up the great work. We really appreciate the effort you're doing to promote the businesses within the TIFA district. We're very excited about that. Moving on to the next item is, just a little bit of a background. Committee person Farrow had a subcommittee, a residential subcommittee, and one of the topics that came up in their discussions was, recommendations was kind of cleaning up or improving the condition of some of the alleys. So Director Seisland took initiative to get some bids to help with that process. And so I guess this agenda item is titled very appropriately, alley cleanup. So Director, can you take us through that, please?
Thank you, Chairman Hughes. So this discussion has been brought up amongst members of the community and obviously of vested interest to the residential subcommittee within the TIFA. In review of the TIFA's alleys, there's a lot of overgrowth and brush and other areas that are necessary for cleanup, and also a public safety issue as well for the vehicles driving down alleys and able to look for safety in those purposes. So talking with our DPW department with the storm events of this year, their hands are very tied in terms of working on the water and sewer side. So I was hoping that the board would consider this expenditure in the residential line item of the budget for an alley cleanup. And we did have Lehman Brothers, we reached out, they were not interested in bidding. Landscape Services, which was $39,000 for the bid, and $13,200 from Backer Landscaping. And so what they would end up doing is prune and trim back trees and shrubs up to 12 inches tall, whip down any tall weeds and brush, and clean up and haul away all of this debris. And so with that said, I would like to ask if there's a consideration for a motion to approve the bid from Backer Landscaping.
I have a question first.
Sure.
I'm just curious. I mean, obviously we need to clean up the alleys. There's no question there. My question becomes the overgrowth in that. Is there a responsibility on the homeowners, residents, owners of the property that we should be looking at as well?
Yeah, so I can answer that. Currently, we do have a code enforcement officer. She is only working 2 days a week. And so, you know, they're enforcing with, you know, the entire city within a 2-day period. And so, you know, she does as much as possible, but it is the responsibility of the homeowner or the landlord for any of that brush that is overgrown. And so it has been something that, you know, we have communicated, and we're going to also as well touch base on that in the most recent update of the communicator, update on social media and the city website that, you know, we really are seeking those landlords and tenants and homeowners to please clean up. It's not only helpful for rats right now. It's a harborage area for them to be. In another aspect, there's obviously you know, trash or recycling bins that are left at times. And so what we're seeking to do is simply a little cleanup and help right now, in that we would hope that people would take it upon themselves as their responsibility to do so. Right now, the city just does not have the means at this time to, you know, go to every house door to door to enforce that. And that's something, you know, I'm hoping with TIFA's consideration tonight, we can look to clean up that area, and then we can move forward for an aggressive, you know, consideration from code enforcement moving forward.
Okay. I guess what I would like to say is let's definitely clean it up, because that's number one. We need to keep the city looking good. But number two is that maybe we could take a look at like the top 3 worst situations and have those people written up and possibly fined, so that they would be responsible and then wouldn't let their property become that bad again in the future.
And the biggest thing, you know, I've communicated with city council, and obviously TIFA members, you can help out as well, is, you know, we do have a code enforcement section on our website, also an email of codeenforcement@grosspointpark.org. You can as well leave a voicemail message or call City Hall. And, you know, what's really helpful for us is, you know, having a picture, an address, stating the concern, so then the code enforcement officer can follow up right away.
Yep.
You know, that's our biggest help and challenge right now, is simply just getting that information so that code enforcement officer can get out there right away and, you know, take a look and see if that they need to reach compliance.
So Nick, Director Seisen, what your suggestion is that you'll probably have some additional instructions for the community. If there is an issue, they can contact, but also include a picture and some of the contact information, so that it helps to direct the code enforcement and make them more efficient. Is that the general idea as well?
That's correct, Chairman Hughes.
Do we have a motion to support the LAP?
Actually, this is Joe Tompkins. I'd like to make a comment, please. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I am on the subcommittee for the residential area. And I think part of our intention was to try to engage the TIFA community to have them have a better understanding of what TIFA is, because I think that probably we're an unknown entity to a lot of people. You know, at least our expectation during our talks was not that we would hire some landscape company to do the work. We were hoping to get the residents to help do the work and the city to participate in hauling the things away, which of course the landscape company could be the city in this case. But, you know, I don't know what my subcommittee members think about that, but I mean, I thought that was kind of our original intention, was try to engage the community to participate, because you're always better if you have skin in the game.
So if I may interject, this is Board Member Piepenbrock, and that's exactly what I was going to say. When we initially started to discuss this, it came up because some neighbors had mentioned issues about the rodent problem that has gotten worse since the recent flooding. So that's what it was initially born out of. And the more we discussed it on the subcommittee, we thought that it would be a great time to engage the community. So is there any way that we can incorporate that into these bids, or, you know, is there any way that we can work that out as well?
I think, I'm sorry, may I?
Please do.
This is board member Marcia. I know that we started thinking about that, and that's a great idea, but I don't think that having the community input affects this bid at all, because we're still going to have stuff hauled away. I think that when we get community involved, it's going to be more than what we think. You know what I'm saying? Like when the flood came and the city started picking up stuff, everybody just cleaned their basements of stuff they've been having for years and years and just didn't want it anymore. That was an ideal time. So when we get together with the community, that's going to be another ideal time. And I'm envisioning that we're going to have more than just the brush or just the stuff that might be in the alley or whatever. And, you know, if you have stuff in your yard and you just want to cut it down, throw it in the alley and they'll come and pick it up. So that's why I'm thinking having somebody come and pick it up. But we can still let the residents know that this is happening on such and such a date. Get out, clean your yards, do what you have to do. And these people will come and pick up the trash. Now that's where I thought it was going. I don't know if that's true or not.
Committee person Farrell, I think that's a great idea to communicate when the initiative takes place, so that if there's certain folks that want to participate in cleaning up their alleys and their areas, they know that the supplier will be around during these days to take the brush away, but also it'll make a pretty big impact pretty immediately, and it'll get us back to a good spot. And I think that's the idea, is to kind of address it and get it done, instead of having something that may or may not be done or be applied inconsistently from block to block. I think if we do this, we know it'll get done, and we can communicate when it's getting done, so that there's some participation, and some of the folks want to participate in that. Hey, great.
That's fine, yes. And then there are neighbors, I know for sure, that's not going to do that. That's not going to clean it up. So, you know, it's either going to be the person who lives next door cleaning it up for them, or these people coming out and hauling away, you know, tearing down the brush, the trees or the bushes or whatever that's blocking the cars from coming down the alley. And, you know, because not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody's going to participate. I wish they would, but they're not going to do that for their own home. So I feel like we need to have somebody to come by and do the stuff that nobody else is going to do.
And just a comment too, you know, one of the things that is different about this bid in comparison to DPW in the past, they would go through once, maybe twice a year. They never really addressed the trees at that time. And so this is what it would be different within this bid in comparison to other times with DPW. And I do hear board members Pipenbrock and Farrow and Tompkins regarding getting the community involved. And I think that is a great thing, you know, certainly we can do. However, at this time, you know, to address what we have right now, I would suggest that we move forward with this bid at this time, and that we could maybe the residential subcommittee and myself can work more towards a community engagement aspect in the future of, you know, having the landlords and homeowners helping out. But at this time, you know, I would seek humbly your consideration for approval of this bid.
I'd like to place a motion to support the proposal. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right. Board member Kuzno. Looks like you're muted.
Oh, sorry, I'm a yes.
Board member DePews. Board member Farrell.
Yes.
Chairman Hughes.
Yes.
Board member Kokoshi.
Yes.
Board member Lee.
Yes.
Board member Mullen.
Yes.
Hi, Arthur. Board Member King Peipenbrock,
Yes.
Board Member Ralstrom,
Yes.
Board Member Secord,
Yes.
and Board Member Tompkins.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Director Seisland. The next agenda item is the Business Improvement Grant Program. Director, could you take us through that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Hughes. So, board members, before you tonight, this is the big program, the Business Improvement Program. And so the goal of this Business Improvement Program is to provide financial assistance to local businesses to meet economic beautification goals throughout the TIFA district and continue assisting businesses recovering from the COVID pandemic. The program will provide funding for site enhancement projects to businesses who would like to complete the following. For example, facade improvements, signage improvements, landscaping, other architectural upgrades, or sanitation upgrades, such as example of enclosing garbage dumpsters. What this would be was a $5,000 program with a 10% match from the businesses. And what we would do is those businesses will have to first get as part of their packet, they'll have to get preliminary approval from the building department and ensure that that is up to code what they're seeking to do, working with our building department, Mr. Terry Brennan, as well as having their business licenses and certificate of occupancies and anything else that is required by the building department. And so the only recommended change I would have within the big program is I did not have in here a deadline for first applications to apply as I did in the residential improvement program. And so I would recommend that all applications for consideration have to be turned in by January 14th, which is consistent with the residential improvement program, giving businesses 3 months, approximately 3 months to date for applications for the TIFA and building department to consider. And so with that said, I'm happy to take any questions, comments, or discussion.
I have a comment, Board Member Cousineau. I'm not sure about that timeline, because when we're talking about doing exterior changes,
if there's no questions or comments, do we have a motion to support the Business Improvement Program?
Chairman Hughes, Board Member Cousineau had a comment. Please continue.
Sorry, okay. Chairman.
Yeah, what I'm questioning is the timeline that is being put out there. And just because of the winter coming at us, I think we should maybe be a little bit more liberal with that time frame and stretch it out, so that instead of saying, the applications by January is fine, but maybe the actual application, we should stretch it out a little bit farther so that we can get into maybe May of next year, so that maybe if weather is a factor, which it's going to be on facade improvements or dumpsters or things of that nature.
Right, and so the intent of this would be the first initial applications that we're reviewing and seeing if this is within the building department, if it's up to code and is something that's acceptable to the conditions of this grant. And then, however, obviously, you're correct. After January would have to be when those improvements would be done and closed out prior to the fiscal year ending on June 30th. But I certainly, I was thinking about that as well. I do hear you. Maybe we can stretch that out to maybe initial applications. Could be, we could say March 1st for consideration. That would give enough time at least for those businesses, and maybe that's something as we move into the residential we could consider as well. Certainly a good comment, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Arthur Mullen. The one would be, if we're looking for granting and constructing facade improvements and also the garbage surrounds, I'm not sure if March 1st to the end of the year is going to be enough. Time. I'm not in the construction trade, but that seems pretty rapid to me to get bids and then someone to come out and do construction. So the question would be, is January 14th good enough for when we submit the applications, and then they have all of February, March, April to get their bids and everything in order, and then they can do construction in May and June. So that would be my question.
No, and certainly those are my thoughts as well, Board Member Mullen. I think that's something that, maybe I'll open up to hear what other members of the committee are thinking about that. I certainly want to be flexible. The biggest thing we just have to ensure is that, we close out by June 30th of that expended grant program. And so that's really the target. Obviously we have to have some time for the building department. And so, we have to be flexible with all that, but I'm certainly happy. Maybe we can meet in the middle, and maybe we can consider maybe a February deadline instead for first applications.
I would tend to agree with you, Nick. I think, most businesses should be able to get a plan on the table for a $5,000 expenditure. And like I said, get the plan out there, have it bid, know what it's going to cost. My question was the execution. And I think that, the fiscal year you said is the end of June. To me, that would be sufficient time to do a $5,000 expenditure. So okay. I'd be in support of that.
Okay. So what I'll suggest then is a motion to approve the business improvement grant with the first applications for consideration due in early February. Do I have a motion for support?
I'll make that motion. This is Arthur Mullen.
Thank you. And support?
I will second that motion. Board Member Cousineau.
All right. Board Member Cousineau.
Yes.
Board Member DePews. Board Member Farrow.
Yes.
Chairman Hughes.
Yes.
Board Member Kikoshi.
Yes.
Board Member Lee.
Yes.
Board Member Mullen.
Yes.
Board Member King Peipenbrock.
Yes.
Board Member Ralstrom.
Yes.
Board Member Secord.
Yes.
And Board Member Tompkins.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is passed.
Very good. Thank you, Director. Director, can you now take us through the residential improvement grant program? I know it's fairly focused, and it's focused for a reason, but go ahead, take us through that, please.
Thank you, Chairman Hughes. So also for your consideration tonight is the Residential Improvement Program, or RIG for short, RIG and BIG. The goal of this residential improvement program is to help expand the availability of off-street parking throughout the TIFA district, which has been something that has been discussed thoroughly by this board within the residential and in the business areas, as well as assistance for disconnecting residential downspouts from the sanitary system. So we wanted to provide two options for residents to consider. Residential property owners who own property within the district are eligible to apply. So landlords and also owners of those homes. The program will provide funding for projects to those property owners who would provide additional off-street parking through or downspout disconnection. For example, of projects such as pouring a new concrete parking pad off the alley, pouring expanded concrete parking pads off the alley, demolition of blighted garages to concrete pad only, and the disconnection of home residential downspouts from sanitary system. My initial intention for the board to consider tonight is that this is a project that we're not seeking to our intent is not to tear down good working garages that are within code and they're in compliance. However, this would be for something where it's a little extra incentive for those that could be dilapidated and or could actually be a health and safety hazard. And so that is the intent of this program here. And so again, this would be about a $5,000 grant with about a 5% match from the homeowner. Or if you go the downspout disconnection, this would be $200 incentive for buying those materials that you would need for disconnecting the downspouts, and you'd be working with the Public Works Department in verification and or assistance for where you need to disconnect that downspout. And so with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments that you may have. Oh, one last thing before I go. Not only for the residential downspout program for the TIFA, this is also being proposed at the city level as well. And so my intent with this is to not only have the city involved with a downspout disconnection, but the TIFA as well, to encompass more of the community. And so just wanted to make that clear for everybody. Floor is all yours.
Nick, I do have, Director, I do have a question. I know this is very focused. The goal is to provide more parking spaces that are not on the street, which is a good thing for the area. Let me ask you why, and I'm not supporting this one, the notion of this question, but let me ask you why we would not use this grant just to fix up garages.
So truly the intent when we're working with some of these grants is you want to keep a focus of a certain criteria areas. And at this time, you know, our city, our code enforcement, our building department over the last year or so have seen numerous cases of code enforcement concerns of a garage that could be, you know, that is afraid of actually falling down. And we've had to send out non-compliance letters to those property owners, and that the intent really for this is to keep a certain area of focus. And however, depending upon if there's interest or maybe not a level of interest that we're expecting, we could obviously amend this grant process later on moving forward if we do not receive a sufficient application. So my recommendation would be to keep as is. However, you know, let's see where we're at timing wise. And, you know, if we're not having something, then I can bring it back to the TIFA for their reconsideration.
Nick, it's Kurt Rahlstrom, and I have two comments. You had mentioned that this is a program for landlords. That money would be available to disconnect the downspouts. My understanding is, as a landlord in that area, that's part of the certificate of occupancy, that those have had to be disconnected for many, many years. So I wonder why people are getting certificates of occupancy if they're, as landlords, if their downspouts are disconnected. So that's one question I wish you would speak to. And the other one is the code enforcement. I mean, who's going to make the determination that when we have this grant that garage can be fixed for that amount versus torn down? So I await your comment. Thank you.
So to be honest with you, Board Member Rahlstrom, this is something that I've addressed at the city level, and unfortunately, our enforcement level in regards to that C of O process was not as sufficient as it should have been in regards to that requirement for those downspouts to be disconnected. However, at this time, obviously, since these most recent storm events and drying out our system, we're taking a much more aggressive approach in regards to, and that is a current requirement as part of our revised ordinance by the city council that was considered. And your second question in regards to how would you determine this? Obviously, this is an application process that I would review and also work with our building official, Mr. Terry Brennan, who certainly would review and see if this is something that should be done, or how we could recommend to that landlord and or homeowner that this does not qualify.
Thank you, Nick. I have a Director Seisman, I have a question. This particular program for the parking pavements or the garages or the downspouts, this has to do with this particular year's budget. So for the next budget, for the next year or whatever, it might not pertain to this, it might pertain to something else. Is that correct? This is not something that every year we're going to be working on parking pads and downspouts.
No, certainly. It depends on what the, how much this program is successful. My intent with this at this time was that, we see how this works out, in that as we, go about, we could certainly make this into a rehabilitation. TIFA does allow us as part of its, a statute to have a rehab program. And so certainly I think this is something that if the board wants to consider, for next year, however, the intent with this current fiscal year, which would end June 30th, would be for those that are currently blighted. And so to answer your question, yes.
Thank you so very much. I just like to do landscaping next year.
Nick, Joe Tompkins. So just to be clear, we're not offering to repair garages. We're only offering to help demolish them if they're deemed unsuitable, unusable. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And secondly, often when a garage is deteriorated, the cement pad deteriorates. So I think as I read this, the intention is we'll tear down the garage and we'd have a good cement pad underneath it. So at that point, are people then able to, of course, there may not be enough money in the $5,000 category to do all that, but they could also get their pad repaired or replaced if it were an unusable pad?
Sure. Yeah. Currently, the way we have this set up, Board Member Tompkins, is that this could be for an incentive for pouring that new concrete pad. And that's something as well that our building department would be able to assist further in taking a look to see if that's as needed. Obviously, with any grant, there's a competitiveness nature depending upon how many applications we receive. Those that could be determined to be at a higher risk will obviously be funded higher than those that could just be, for a concrete pad that may be crumbling or breaking up.
Thank you.
I have another question, Director Seisman. If like, say for instance, my parking pad needs to be resurfaced or whatever, is there a way that the city would recommend or somebody to say like fix it, or do I have to do all that on my own?
This is something that you would have to do on your own currently. If you were seeking contractors and or seeing if the city would do that, no, it would be responsibility of the homeowner.
Right, not that the city would do it, but the city has some idea of, can recommend somebody to me if I'm like a single mom or a single woman or whatever, and just to keep me from being gouged, have somebody, the city would recommend this is a good, upstanding business. They won't take advantage of you, that kind of stuff. For the citizens that, need this done, but they might not know a lot about it, like myself.
Yeah, and so certainly you could contact our building department or a DPW, and they could give you, certain areas to look at and, provide you with those.
Thank you.
Director Seisman, I have a question as well. You mentioned the city was already doing something with the downspout disconnects, or you're talking to the city about that. And I'm just wondering, why would we do that as well? It seems to me that would be duplicative, and would there be a benefit of us both doing that? Can you explain that, please?
Yeah. My intent with this is that this would be a supplement to the city's program that hasn't been introduced yet, but will be relatively the same as TIFA's, where the purpose from these storm events in June and July is, it's very obvious. Not only, these are kind of these little low-hanging fruits that's very simple for residential homeowners to do on their own, of doing this downspout disconnection. It's something that our city engineers are providing educational materials that'll be coming out soon of how to do this. It'll be featured on our city website. And every little bit makes an impact in regards to, a typical 1-inch rain event gets about 1,000 gallons of water on your roof. And so that's going to the sanitary system. And, I can get a hold into that. But the intent was, if we could have the American Rescue Plan dollars, which is being funded, through the federal government for the city. And then we have in the TIFA area as well. So we're providing a wider range, for consideration. And so my intent was simply to provide this to the entire community, which we could just do with the city. However, I just wanted to give just a little incentive option of, something that the TIFA could do.
So then can an individual apply for both then? They can apply for the city one and the TIFA one, or how would that work?
How that would work right now, if this was approved tonight, somebody that applies in the TIFA district would go for the TIFA funding until those funds are expelled, and then if they are, then they could go to the city. But my intent would be hopefully that the city residents outside of the TIFA would use those funds, and then the TIFA residents would use those TIFA funds.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question. This is Board Member Cousineau. Two questions. First question is, how do residents know that this program is available? I'm wondering if people are even aware that these incentives exist if we do this. How do they know that?
So if this is approved tonight, we'll be issuing this obviously through social media, our city website, and our email system. If you have not signed up on Constant Contact as well, I would intend to have flyers and information posted at City Hall, and we could have it at the Lavin Center in other areas. And then obviously, one of the great things about working on the business aspect with Mr. Joe Habecka and the Business Association is that Joe has a pretty extensive list of those businesses that I could ask him to please share the big program. And then obviously residential members of the TIFA board. And I know certainly probably some city council members will probably be sharing this program as well, for further verification of this. And then we could also consider adding a little blurb into our next communicator that'll be going out this fall.
As far as the email system, the Constant Contact, I know I'm signed up for those and I see all that information, and it's very, very good. It's very effective. Roughly what percentage of residents in the TIFA as well as the city as a whole have signed up for that program, so that we have an idea of what type of penetration of information that we have?
I couldn't give you the exact number on TIFA, but I know roughly we have about 6,000 people that are signed up for our email system right now.
Okay, so we've got, that's a pretty good number then.
And that could be a lot of, old, maybe or outside the community. And so we can obviously, blast that out on other avenues through our city website and social media.
Okay, because that's important.
And in the newspaper as well.
Okay. My other question, comment kind of goes back to what Kurt Ralstrom was commenting about the downspout disconnections, and looking at it and thinking about understanding the need to do this is very, very important. But if it's something that is really required by code, aren't we effectively rewarding people for not doing the job that they were supposed to do by paying them or giving them money to do something that they've already should have done on their own? So I'm kind of questioning the logic of the downspout connection. The garages makes very good sense. I understand that it's a bigger number, but for $100 or so that it costs to disconnect your downspouts, they should have done that. And like I said, I question that one and think I think we're rewarding people for bad behavior, which is like giving a screaming child candy. So that part I would like to exempt.
If I could address that real quick too, Nick, I think it's maybe an overstatement to say it's rewarding bad behavior. Some of that is a result of enforcement issues on the city end. And there are also permitted exceptions and exemptions that now are being tightened up under the new ordinance. So this would, alleviate some of the burden of previously being in compliance, where maybe now you're no longer in compliance. And so it's and I think there are instances too. My house is an example. I have a downspout that goes into the system that needs to be fixed. I got a C of O. I didn't do anything wrong. I just wasn't told to remove it at the time. And so I think it's sort of kind of correcting the previous lack of enforcement. I just want to make it clear. It's not necessary, and it's not personal to me. I'm not being defensive, I promise. But it's not necessarily a citizen malfeasance issue. It's a little more complicated than that. And so I think, as we've discussed at city council meetings, and Nick has been involved in, it's more of an incentive program for everybody to get it done than to reward people that were purposely trying to violate the ordinance. I don't really think that was the issue, as much as it wasn't uniformly enforced and maybe too many exemptions were given.
Well, I guess I'm looking at it from a standpoint then of maybe we need better communication with the public to say the importance of disconnecting the downspouts rather than just throwing money at it. that maybe it's more of a communication issue.
Board Member Ralstrom, I agree with you, Randy, 100%. That's the only thing in this proposal that we're considering that I question. Thank you.
This is Board Member Mullen. Attorney Howlett, could you my problem is I'm on a very small lot. What happens where I can't disconnect because I'm going to have a flood, because most of my yard is impervious surface, roof, driveway, garage roof. There's nowhere for the water to go.
In that instance, you would qualify for an exemption under the new, probably under the old, but also definitely under the new ordinance. I don't remember right off the top of my head, but there's a process where the city can come out. You can sort of make that hardship claim, or anybody can. And if it's going to create more problems than it's going to solve because of ice and things like that, then that exemption is available. And if for some reason an exemption is denied, there's an appeal process for that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Mullen, I've had those same issues, and the city has been very workable with me, where the downspout would discharge on cement and would create a hazard. So the city has been forthright in the past with that.
We're actually seeking members right now of our Downspout Appeals Board, it's called. So anyone in the public or anyone on TIFA that knows anyone that'd be interested, we are seeking a resident. So please please turn in an application and for consideration. Currently with that appeals board, which Board Member Mullen talked about, of a possible exemption is someone from our engineering firm, OHM Advisors, a DPW employee, and a resident. So if there's one lucky resident out there, we'd love to have you.
Thank you. Director Sison, I have to ask one more question about the residential program here. I remember one time we talked about what would disqualify a person from, say, like this $5,000. And I'm thinking that not being able to, what do you call it? Not being able to prove that I can probably come up with the 5%. Was that something that would disqualify somebody from getting this grant? I know you have to be a resident and that kind of thing, but I don't know. I thought it was something else that would disqualify. So if I can't prove I can come up with the extra 5%, I can't get the grant. Is that correct?
That is correct. So it's really a partnership and matching that you have the intent that you're going to, see through, that you're going to go ahead and, continue with the residential improvement program, and that we ask, for that 5% commitment. And so if a resident or landlord could not make that 5% commitment, then they would not be qualified for this grant.
Okay. And there's nothing else that would disqualify a person besides not being a resident, of course, but.
Assuming that it's approved tonight, also if they're not in good standing with a C of O, that would be the only other consideration, or something that could be a concern on the building department if there's a certain license that hasn't been done.
Okay, but for homeowners and not landlords, there's not a whole lot that will disqualify you.
No, maybe. Just if you could not make the 5% or you don't have a valid C of O.
Okay.
Director Seislin, this is Arthur Mullen. I wanted to put something out in the ether for us to consider for next year. I know that the city at one point had a garage rehab grant program in the TIFA district. My garage was condemned by the city and had to, and I was in the process of actually bringing it up to code, and it's now an example of what can be brought back. One thing I did want to caution us to consider is once a garage is removed from a property, you'll end up seeing a $25,000 to $40,000 loss in value. When you're trying to resell a property in the Cabbage Patch, the property is worth a lot less if there isn't a garage. And so we're almost shooting ourselves in the foot as a body that is supposed to be encouraging tax increment finance growth And we have not seen many garages that have been built in the TIFA district in the last 15 years that I'm aware of. So I have some serious concerns about this program, and I would really want to be able to consider a grant program where we're also providing a carrot to individuals to rehab their garages instead of demolishing them.
And I appreciate your comments, Board Member Mullen. Definitely, you know, as we are considering this program, you know, parking has been something that's been thoroughly discussed by the TIFA board on the residential and the business side. Certainly, I don't believe it's our intention or mine that, you know, we're seeking, you know, to, you know, tear down, you know, this is simply a help for parking for those that, you know, to take off from the street right now, which has been a challenge, certainly for members of the community. And certainly, as you said, with the Tax Increment Finance Authority, you know, there is a potential for rehabilitation. And obviously, one thing I'll have to consider is that if we're not receiving maybe the amount of applications that we thought for this program, then we may have to revise this grant, and or we you know, take that into consideration with the next grant that this you know, may not have worked. And so I hear you, and I really appreciate all of your thoughts and your consideration. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'd humbly ask for a motion for approval.
Can I make a motion that we approve the portion for the garage demolition, but not the downspout deferment?
Support Randy with that.
Oh, okay, so that you would have to make a motion to amend. At first, we need to get the motion on the floor as it stands, and then a motion to amend with that change, Board Member Kuzinaw. And then once we vote on the motion to amend, we can vote on the original motion with the amendment. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. So I would like to make a motion to amend the initial motion to eliminate the support for or the financing for the downspout disconnection.
I think first we need the motion on, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Don't we need the motion first though to approve the project as presented? And then
okay, so we have to take a vote on the project first.
No, we don't have to vote on it. Put the motion on the floor and then put the amendment on after the motion.
I'm at a loss. I'm not sure what you want me to do.
So I think procedurally what we should do is put a motion on the floor and a second to put this up for a vote, right? As it stands now, knowing you want to amend it, not have the vote, but so the motion is officially on the table. Then we can amend it. We can't amend it. It's not on there yet.
Okay, so then we have to make a motion to support the as it stands.
Correct, and then a motion to amend that before we vote.
Okay, so can I ask for a motion for the original grant program?
So moved.
All right, I'll take Chairman Hughes' motion and support from Board Member Farrell.
Okay, and now we've got, I would call a vote, Nick, on the motion to amend is Board Member Kuzinaw has already set forth.
Okay, and so a yes is to confirm this grant with also removing the downspout disconnection, and a no is to keep it as is. Board Member Kuzinaw?
Yes.
Board Member DePuse? Board Member Farrell?
Yes.
Chairman Hughes?
Yes.
Yes. Board Member Kokoshi?
Yes.
Board Member Lee?
Yes.
Board Member Mullen?
Yes.
Board Member King Piepenbrock?
Yes.
Board Member Ralstrom?
Yes.
Board Member Secord?
Yes.
And Board Member Tompkins?
No.
Okay. Motion passes with one dissenting vote regarding the residential improvement program, and with the exception of removing the downspout disconnection. thank you all. That was a great discussion, and certainly happy to hear your comments and thoughts during this. Always good to get a different perspective.
Thank you, Director Seisland. Let's move on to new old business. I don't believe we have any new business, but under old business, I take that back. Under new business, I think this might be an appropriate time to talk potentially about addressing some of the rodent control, and perhaps it's a two-pronged approach. One might be some information about do's and don'ts. The other might be enlisting a supplier to assist with some of the rodent control in a fashion that is safe to household pets. So Nick, do you have, Director Seisland, do you have a couple thoughts on that, please?
Thank you, Chairman Hughes. And so this was brought up from the residential subcommittee, and obviously a lot of interested residents that there is a concern, from COVID-19 as well as probably from the storm events. There's been an increased presence from rodents within Grosse Pointe Park, in that, the consideration was for what can the city do to help with this. At this time right now, the city does have communications out there, and we'll look to further those out within the communicator and city website in regards to preventing rodent harborage, which is typically make sure your trash is removed on a timely basis, don't have wood piles, feces from your household pets outside, and other considerations within such. And as well, this is something that has been grappled, and I do believe it probably would be important or consideration of TIFA to look into how can we address that rodent problem. And if you'd like me to, I could take a look into, is this something that maybe the TIFA could contract out, in the TIFA area for consideration. And so I know there are some residential committee members that might have some ideas or others, and I'd be happy to hear your thoughts.
I would, this is Marcia, Director Seisman. I was wondering, when we did approve the alley cleanup, if these two things can, I don't know, we didn't set a date. I don't know when we're gonna set a date for the alley cleanups and stuff like that, but could these two things work hand in hand? Do you think that we can get, if we go for another company coming in and helping us rid the city of rodents or however, can this work at the same time with the alley cleanup?
It could potentially. What I would have to do is seek out interested parties that may want to do this work within the TIFA. And I could, consider approval of such that is under a $5,000 expenditure. Anything above that, I would like to bring to the TIFA board for their consideration. And so that would be something that we'd have to probably hold a special TIFA meeting just for that purpose. Otherwise, if there's something that we can do for, under that expenditure, I'd be happy to do so. But at this time, to be able to do both, it probably would not be able to happen. And it's something that, we could probably bring, I could have available potentially at the next TIFA meeting, maybe at that time. Any other comments about rats? Okay, moving on from that as well, exciting news. We do have the DPW project, just to give an update on that. We have received, this is a good place to finish. They just finished the ride. Sorry for that. We do have a permit from Wayne County that has been approved for the right-of-way area, which has been taking some time. And we're expected to have a potential groundbreaking sometime within the next week here. So certainly take a look for that and that communication, and that'll be very exciting for this TIFA board to see that get moving along as well. I just received a copy of the report of the parking study that was done by MKSK, which is the city's master plan consulting firm. They also included with this outside of TIFA is the DDA and the non-TIFA area or DDA, which is the Cadieux businesses and some areas of Jefferson. And so I just received this, and this is something that I'll be reviewing with the public safety director and ordinance enforcement, and something that certainly I'll bring for the TIFA board at its next meeting after we have a final adjustment. And so I don't have anything else in regards to that. And if there's any other new or old business, the floor is yours.
Dr. Seisland, I just had a question about, I know you were doing a search for a new director for TIFA. Is there any update on that?
So we did have an we did have an advertisement out for TIFA. We're still seeking applicants right now. That would be interested within that. For anyone that does not know my duties right now, I act as the acting TIFA director and DDA director, as well as my role as city manager. And I think it's best, for the TIFA and the DDA to have their a dedicated director that could assist, with working directly with them as well. So as much as I love working with you guys and the DDA, I think my duties as city manager, would certainly, be a lot more helpful if I could spread that out. And so if you have any interested parties, if you could please have them reach out to me, and we can send out the application or the job advertisement that's also on our city website. And so it's something we're still seeking out right now.
Just as a note, I just want to make sure you realize we're not trying to get rid of you. I'm just trying to take something off your plate. Okay. Thank you.
I know. Appreciate it. No, it's been a pleasure working with you all. So it's been fun. Any other new or old business? Chairman Hughes?
If we do not have any new or old business, let's move on to public comment on non-agenda items, please.
Thank you, Chairman Hughes. It looks like I do have one person in the queue, so give me 1 second to share my screen. And Mr. Kevin Rasmussen, if you could please state your name and city of residence, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Seisland. First, I'd like to thank the committee for addressing overgrowth in the alley. I appreciate that. Second, are there any plans or consideration for resurfacing alleys that are in need of repair? And that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Hughes, I have no further public comment.
If there's no other public comment, then we shall move to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
I second it.
Board Member Kuzno?
Yes.
Board Member DePews? Board Member Farrell?
Yes.
Chairman Hughes? Board Member Kikoshi?
Yes.
Board Member Lee?
Yes.
Board Member Mullen?
Yes.
Board Member King Peipenbrock?
Yes.
Board Member Ralstrom?
Yes.
Board Member Secord?
Yes.
And Board Member Tompkins.
Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your time and your efforts. Excellent meeting. Thank you very much.